Are we good? I think so. All right. I am excited. Just get properly positioned. Give everyone a few minutes to filter through, and also for me to get this link tossed out. But I hope everybody is having a fantabulous commencement of your Saturday. First day of it's the first of the month. Wake up, wake up, wake up. First of the month. Get this volume adjusted too. But this is one that I am incredibly excited to discuss because I hadn't revisited this book in quite a while. Honestly, more so than ever, I like the go-tos in film because the Darabont film is just so exceptional. And honestly, one of the most faithful adaptations like around, at least in my estimation. I mean, it's what, over 3 hours long if I remember, but it doesn't really feel its runtime. So copy link. But yeah, this book is, damn, this book is exceptional. Exceptional stuff. So I hope that you guys will have some nice insight to bring to the tabla. Just going to share this in the Hail group, and then we will be good to roll out this exceptional book. Or series of books, to be fair. And it's funny because King has this foreword and this afterword where he talks about the process of writing like this and just how it challenged him at times. And there's a lot of interesting things to discuss as far as like just insight and stuff like that goes. Come on, andale, internet. Okay, and I'm just gonna, come on, select all. There we go. Copying. So just do this on the regular, face peasy, and then on the Hail group, and then we gonna roll. Very excited. And also, there is a surprise unboxing that we're going to be doing today as well, because I believe I finally got what I pre-ordered so friggin' long ago. So that will be cool. So that's something else that we can all enjoy and have some palaver about. So, okay, there you are. Gosh, one of the biggest, most irritating things about managing a Facebook group is the amount of fake bot requests and shit. It's incredibly irritating. But okay. I think that will do it. And all right. Just going to take a sip of my agua here. Repping my sons, as you guys can see. Okay. Let's get going, shall we? Long days and pleasant nights, fellow travelers, along the path of the beam. I am known on this level of the towers, Jaime and Fuego, and if it please you, join me here for a bit of palaver on Hail! Woo! To Stephen King. That's easy. And obviously, bienvenidos, and welcome to the Horror Show. And this is the monthly live show where we do a book of the month selection, and it usually coincides with either a new release or with something that is celebrating an anniversary. And this year marks the 25th anniversary of these babies. Yeah. So the serialized Green Mile series that was, as you can see back there, it was eventually collected as a hardcover and just, did in one single form. But it's funny, reading the foreword, as I mentioned before, like properly starting the show, Sai King talking about just the process of this and how it was a suggestion from it was either a realtor or a buddy of his so I think it was a buddy of his that was that dealt with like international publishing and stuff like that. But it was an idea floated to him by a real estate friend. And he's like, yeah, Dickens used to, Charles Dickens, that is, the great, the wonderful, talented. He used to publish his books in these serialized installments. And I mean, other people did it too. Like if you've ever read Pinocchio, one of my all-time favorites, Carlo Collodi, he actually published that in installments as well, which is why most of the stories ended on a cliffhanger and things of that nature. And so this publishing buddy of King's floated the idea to him that this other person had brought up. And King's like, that could be kind of an intriguing challenge. And so he took it upon himself to just put out one installment every single month, and he started in March of 1996 at the end of that month, and then there was a monthly different release of all of these. And I just remember very distinctively how, all of these kids at my school, because I was in middle school, I think, when this came out. And yes, it was just all the rage. And also the fact that he was selling these, and they're like, most of them I think are less than $100. And look at King, looking all studly and stuff there. But yeah, these were like $2.99 each, man. And so, I mean, yeah, this was cheaper than spending like what, $25, $35 or whatever it is now on a hardcover. And so relatively reasonable. And also just, I love installment storytelling like this, and the fact that each one has like a intriguing sort of scenario and setup. And so, yeah, this book is, wow. As I said pre-game before, like starting the show properly, it had been quite a while since I'd read this one, and just the fact that I tried to do it in installments, so I would I as per always, I read and then I listened, so on, and yeah, I basically took them one chunk at a time and then took a break, and just let it simmer and settle and ruminate a little bit. And so, yeah, man, this is tremendous storytelling, and yet it's intriguing in the fact that, especially in the back half of this book, where it kind of turns into a condemnation of capital punishment, and also just there's so much just kind of ruminating on aging and the sadness of loss of friends and loved ones and lovers, significant others and stuff like that. And so there's a lot of sadness in this book, especially in the back half, man. I mean, yeah, it hits. So let's see what some of the peeps are mentioning in the chat. Who was hanging out? Who was making an appearance? Let's take a peek ski. And obviously, I want to hear your thoughts, guys. I've got, as I tend to do, I've got some passages specifically from this book that I think are absolutely brilliant. King uses analogy and metaphor just so well in this book. And it's also very romantic in the fact that I can see the Edgecombe, his relationship with his wife is so endearing, and the fingerprints of him and Tabby is all over just their relationship in this book. But also it kind of theorizes what it would be like to be older and to find love in the ruins, I think is what he calls it. But let's see, I know Austin was here already. What is up, good sir? Irish technical thinker, from one Irishman to another. Everybody who knows my real last name instead of this silly moniker, they know that I am Irish as the day is long, despite being here in the States. So what does that mean? Austin says it's King's favorite screenplay. Yeah, Darabont killed it with this, man. He really, really did. But obviously, we are here to discuss the serialized novel proper. And I already did a review, I think in the last year. I think it was last year that I did. It was either a year or two ago. Whenever that film was celebrating its 20th anniversary. I think it came out in either 99 or 2000. So I did do a 20th anniversary discussion specifically about the film, and just man, rest peacefully, Michael Clark Duncan, because he embodied coffee so well. And this is definitely one of those books where as is often the case with King stuff and with a lot of things, I do tend to watch a screen adaptation beforehand and then go and consult the book, because as I often contend, it's like you get the director's cut, as opposed to the Cliff Notes, you get the expanded story. But really, Darabont, with that runtime of over 3 hours and stuff, he crams pretty much everything in there, and so, yeah, fantastic adaptation. I like the Wild Bill dude. I mean, just the casting is synonymous in my head with reading this story and envisioning those characters, from Percy to, Wild Bill, and just the actors that portrayed them. I want to say Rockwell was Wild Bill, if I remember correctly. But in any event, we are here to discuss the book and enjoy that. But let's see who else is chillaxing with me here on this lovely Saturday, where my Phoenix Suns are, at least for the moment, the number one team in the National Basketball Association. One of them, at least. Okay, Corey Novak, my dude, what is going, man? Book was awesome. Yeah, this is fantastic stuff, and it runs the gamut of some political social commentary, as I already said, to the romanticism, including one of my favorite passages that I look forward to getting to, and just reflecting on a very lengthy life that this character has had, man. I mean, significant in that regard. And okay, sorry, I gotta turn these silly notifications off. But yeah, Paul is a great character, and I love just the voice that he embodies throughout this. So very much looking forward to hearing all of your thoughts and what you're going to chime in with. Zach King, unfortunately, I'm doing tech for a memorial, so I'll have to catch this later. Hope y'all are doing well. Well, Zach, thanks for at least stopping in and saying what's up, man. Always appreciate when you've got some insight to impart. TG Whip 7, sup, Jaime. That is the moniker, probably worn out by this particular point after all these years, but I'm glad y'all still come around. Austin says, I think the route of a serial novel helped this book so much because it even kept King on his toes while trying to keep up writing. Yeah, and that's the challenging aspect. And in the afterward, he's like, there was motivation, and some people work really good under pressure, having those deadlines and stuff like that. And he admitted that, it kept him on his toes, as you said. And yeah, the book is, in all inherent purposes, better for that. Like, despite like the finished product, when it was all collected, still being relatively lengthy, I feel like this is not one of those King stories where there's like a lot of fat. It's very lean and mean, and it flows very well. And it flows between the two time periods of 96 and 1932 during the Great Depression. Like, it's seamless. It's not jarring when things, and within chapters will jump, back and forth and stuff like that. But yeah, Paul's voice is just fantastic throughout this, and just his reflection and his personal misgivings at that particular time in 32, and how, the stuff with coffee was what basically made him no longer want to do this for a living. And obviously the touch that was imparted and passed along to him probably had something to do with that. But even before then, man, I mean, just the shining example of just empathy and kindness and stuff that coffee just exemplifies and exudes throughout the story. And now I know some people have gone on record to say that this is another one of Stephen King's, and please, that like this is the term that is used through the industry, the magic Negro. And I know, for instance, Whoopi Goldberg kind of denounces the Mother Abigail character a little bit, and said that she wanted to, with her new portrayal for the Stay in CBS series, that she wanted to do something different. And to be fair, King, between The Shining and between this, I mean, he has written his fair share of characters like that. But I believe there is a sweetness and a respect to his approach with it. And so, I mean, art is subjective, obviously, and I know people have their opinions, and rightfully so. And being a gringo, I probably don't have, and King being one as well. Who knows? Maybe I don't have as much right to comment on those sort of narratives, but I feel like he gives a lot of like just respect and reverence to John Coffey, the character, and he's one of my favorite Stephen King characters. I mean, in some ways, he is more memorable in many ways, and obviously the Michael Clark Duncan performance probably has something to do with that in my mind, because he's obviously who I see when I'm reading this character. But he did such a bang up job with this tale, and just it is sad, though. It is heartbreaking at many times. And I feel like that is one of the reasons why, what happens with Paul is almost a blessing and a curse sort of situation with the length of his life. And we find out that when he's writing this in 96, he's like over 100 years old. It's, it's craziness. But back to y'all and your thoughts. Sorry, I feel like I detoured just a little bit longer. But Irish Technical Thinker says, your knowledge on Stephen King is unmatched. I finished Sleeping Beauties about 2 months ago, read it twice during lockdown, got to know all kinds of details. Wow. Yeah. With reading the comic book last week, I have a little bit more of a respect for Sleeping Beauties. I still adore the setup. I feel like it meanders. And that's the thing. This book does not meander, in my estimation. Once again, it's, that all killer, no filler sort of situation. And there's so many memorable set pieces from, the death of Delacroix to, I mean, even the early stuff with Chief, and that, like, there's fascinating characters in this. And even though I'm not so, like the Warden is far more interesting than, like, the other lackeys who, help Edgecombe out with, like, sneaking coffee out and whatnot. But nonetheless, man, and there's just some terrific passages as far as analogy that I look forward to sharing with y'all. So, hi there, bro. Love your work. Chronic Cobra, I greatly appreciate that, man. Humbled and honored to have such kind words heaped upon. Travis Miller, yo, says, finished this one up a month ago. So good, and might have shed a tear watching the movie. Mr. Jingles got me good. Yeah, there is just a lot of, there are many memorable moments in this particular story. Grocery stores love the serial editions. Yeah, that's what I remember being in like the Safeway, you know, Bonds, I think they call them in other parts of the country and stuff. But I was in Safeway, and I remember seeing the little spinny racks that I don't even think they really have those anymore. Probably his best drama, in my humble opinion, says Adam Montano. And yeah, that's the thing. I mean, this book, yes, there is kind of a little bit of supernaturalness to it, and there's the one really gory moment in particular. Well, I guess two if you count the bus accident that he finally goes into at the end, which is very like unbreakable sort of situation, you know, in a lot of ways is what it reminded me of. But yeah, it's just a heavy-handed drama that really just hits those emotional marks so well and so effectively. Dale, what is up, man? Says, hey guys. Irish Technical Thinker chimes in again and says, you can visit your home again. Visit Ireland anytime and stay in my home. Most welcome up. Kind words, man. Good. Cheers. Cheers to that. Austin says, I know there was discussion of Shaq playing coffee. That would have been interesting. Yeah, well, if Steele and Kazam taught us anything, I'm just kidding. But I would be down to see Shaq come back as Steele in some sort of, hey, bring him in the Flash movie. I think that could be interesting. Okay, Silver Shamrock. Okay, hope you're doing good, Fuego. Dale, I wish the same to you, man. Thank you so very much for tuning in and giving some thoughts. Broken Brooks, Dukes, man. Hey from the UK. Good day, sir. In the Green Mile, could John Coffey, God, inhuman initials, JC, Jesus Christ. Oh, wow. Yeah, I think that semblance and, that initial thing is most definitely deliberate on King's part. It's coffee, not spelled. Yeah, coffee, just not spelled like the drink. Yeah. Jacob, my dude, how the hell are you, man? Wasn't aware we was live. I was busy at the moment, so I'll watch it later. Just popping by to say hey, Fuego. And I greatly appreciate it and hope you are doing well in over on the other side of the pond as well. Dave Edmonds, whoa, great insight, Irish. Yeah, definitely. You feel his gentleness through the book. It was a recurring line through the book. Yep. Don Gray says, I got to read it each as an installment chapter, got released originally. First installment on a flight from Tampa to Chicago. Yeah, this is especially with each installment being as breeze of a read as they are. This is the kind of thing that would be great for a flight for a couple hours. You could easily just boom, 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 cruise through this. And I cruised through it in just like a day or so, you know? So, God, I'm old. Not at all, man. Age is a state of mind, sir. My girlfriend wouldn't mind your Irish after all. Coolness, guys. Well, okie doke. So let's just share a little bit of insight about this. So the serialization commenced on March 28, 1996 and concluded on August 29, 1996. They collected it as a hardcover in October of 2000. But then what I have really been trying to get my hands on, man, is that Subterranean Press edition that they did in 2007, which has new illustrations and, collects everything in the individual volumes once again. Man, that is what I would really, really love to obtain, but it's pricey. So, I don't know. I continue scouring the eBays and, just doing my best, but that is definitely one that takes some time. And then the movie came out December 10th, 1999. It was nominated for 5 different Academy Awards. Fortunately, it didn't win any of them. I know Michael Clark Duncan lost to, I think it was Michael Caine for Best Supporting for the Cider House Rules, which I've seen, and it was fine. But and then it lost on Best Picture to American Beauty, the infamous Kevin Spacey. So, yeah, man. But yes, the predominance of the story taking place in 1932, but written from the perspective of this man who is like 104 years old, his Edgecombe character, and he's in this Georgia nursing home reflecting on his time at Cold Mountain, the penitentiary, and just the lumbering presence of this dude, 6'8", like 320, maybe even as much as 350 pounds, and yet so docile and so kind-hearted. And you're like, how could this guy be guilty of killing these 2 beautiful little girls, the rape and kill? Horrible, horrible, horrible accusations. And yet, law enforcement's like, well, we found him holding them. And so, yeah, he's very obviously the culprit. And so, yeah, he's on death row, the Green Mile. And I'm sure everybody knows that the reason they called it the Green Mile was like the weird linoleum and like the walkway and stuff. And so, yeah, man, but yeah, what an achievement of storytelling. And obviously somebody mentioned already, coffee like the drink, and that's spelled the same way. And yeah, just describing, just another moth in the killing bottle. And what a weird sort of thing to have this old Sparky, and or riding the lightning, as they all called it up until, now that's probably more synonymous with a Metallica album than anything else. But nonetheless, man, I mean, just the interesting cast of characters. As I already said, I didn't find, his subordinate buddies, who he kind of slowly turns on to the idea to be that fascinating. But Percy and the duality of Percy with the orderly at the Georgia home, and just the similarities of their personalities and their just inherent nastiness. Very well crafted villains. And then you've got the wild card crazy villain of the Wild Bill dude, who shows up and is like obsessed with Billy the Kid and all that stuff. And we do have a later revelation, and this being a spoilers discussion, obviously, there's kind of a convenient sort of like revelation about who the killer actually is, as opposed to not being John Coffey. That's maybe one of my only gripes about this story. Is it most definitely felt, because that really serves the plot to have that connection of, who you find out killed those two girls, as opposed to it just being a rando and just knowing for sure it's not John Coffey. But I guess that if there's any sort of convenient storytelling, it can be just described as convenient, and so yes, there are no like just coincidences without purpose in pretty much all of Sai King's storytelling. And so even though, yes, maybe I could harp on that a little bit when you find out who the killer actually is, and spoilers, yes, it turns out to be that Billy the Kid crazoid who shows up. So that's really one of the only revelations in this, but it's more so about just the emotional impact, the gut punch of just hoping so desperately that John Coffey can be saved. And yet this is not really a story with a happy ending in his regard, or in Paul's regard, or for any character. I mean, pretty much all of the main and supporting characters that are in this, like Stephen King says when and how they died. It's kind of a morbid sort of approach, which he has, he's done in some of his books and stuff, but the fact that he is like, yes, this character died of intestinal cancer, and this character, like, he goes into, like, he gives like a finality to everybody aside from our narrator. And so that's one thing that I found just kind of intriguing, yet also it's definitely dark. That is for damn sure. I definitely dug the line of more chains on him than Scrooge saw on Marley's ghost. So you do have a deliberate Dickens reference, even beyond the fact that Dickens' approach of serialized storytelling was, or the chapbooks as they call them in certain cases, was something that played a part in the approach and in the construct and so on and so forth. So yeah, a man's mouth gets him in more trouble than his pecker ever could. That is for damn sure. I cannot disagree with that sentiment at all. And it's just the way King humanizes even characters like Dell, who, like, you feel bad for him because he's going to be put to death. But yet, with what he did with, like raping and killing a girl and then burning down the structure, trying to hide the evidence of his horrible atrocity, and then inadvertently kills like 6 other people in the process and burning down that piece of property. So yeah, and yet still with just the almost like childlike sweetness of his connection with this little Mr. Jingles, this little trick mouse of sorts and stuff. And like, Percy is already bad, man, but you despise him infinitely more with just smushing that mouse, man. You're like, this motherfucker, man. It's just, yeah, he is definitely an intriguing villain, and he is described by King at one particular point as being a dose of white arsenic sprinkled into a wedding cake, as in just the inevitability of he's going to be responsible for doing something unbelievably awful. And yes, Dell was supposed to die, but one of the reasons why we just, in places where they still have capital punishment and executions, which King definitely bemoans in this, especially in the back half of the book, where he's like, we zap people, we gas people, all this different stuff, whether it's gas or whether it's lethal injection or, whatever. It's like, do they need to suffer, And they typically try to do stuff like this where it's like flick of a switch or whatever, and you're gone. And yet what happens with Del, it's definitely the most grisly part of the whole book. And yes, there are a couple other people that are put to death in this, but Chief and stuff, like I said. But yeah, man, just talking about the popping of the eyeballs and all of that nastiness, that's where King, just kind of dips his ink into the horror stuff that he is most known for. But as we mentioned, the rest of this is primarily just very adept dramatic territory. So let's see what everybody has said in the meantime as we jump back to it. Okay, Austin says, I just can't see God putting a gift like that in the hands of a man who would kill a child. Yeah, and that's where, and King also kind of goes after God at the end of this book. He's like, about just the unfairness of the universe at times, and how people are like, how do horror, like that eternal question that everybody is asked, about, with a kind, compassionate creator, why do we have this sort of suffering and sadness in this world? And King goes for it in just saying that he's like, I don't think God really cares. There is like that essence of indifference. It's something King really calls out in this book, and has done before too, in something like Revival and what happens to Charlie Jacobs, for instance, and stuff like that. But okay, Angus Johnson says, incredible book, really shows King's range. I totally concur, man. Seems like a lot of people forget is this format that Steve King's proof of concept of Kindle. This and Everything is Eventual. Man, that Everything's Eventual full-length movie, I wish they could find a way to get out. They showed it last week for the Dollar Baby Festival, and it was just so damn good. But it definitely, like, King has experimented, obviously, with just putting shorter stories into, everything from the New Yorker to Playboy to whatever else. But this definitely showed with what he would do with and other novellas, although most of those being a single encompassing story as opposed to the installment aspect like we have here. Doesn't the Shawshank prison feature in the beginning of it, or is it the Green Mile? In the film, or because Shawshank is mentioned so damn much. In rereading, if Shawshank is mentioned in the Green Mile, I do not recall. But with this being on the other side of the country, being in the Deep South and stuff, I don't believe so. But I could obviously be mistaken. Juniper Hill and Shawshank, I believe, are both mentioned in it, if I recall correctly. But with so much information in the head, I always make the Kelly Bundy joke, where it's like sometimes I feel like there is, like, with reading all of these books, every single friggin' one of them, there's like, when you revisit one, maybe certain more Easter eggy facts from other volumes that you haven't revisited in a while, maybe it pushes some of those facts out of my brain sometimes. And that's me just admitting, I'm human, yo. Don't you know I'm human too? Okay, Austin chimes in with a super chat. You rock, homie. Says Percy is one of King's top 5 evil human characters, up there with Andy Wilkes, Greg Stillson, Norman Daniels, and Henry Bowers. You are not wrong in any capacity, man. You are most spot on with that assessment. He is incredibly memorable, and you hate the Psalm bitch, man. You just cannot stand him. He is so just uncaring, and there is no empathy, sympathy, any of that whatsoever. There are some people who are just naturally vindictive, and I always attest to the fact that it's how you were raised. That is most definitely it's like if a dog is beaten up all the time, by an abusive master, that dog is probably going to be mean, man. You pass along negativity to other people. It's just and other creatures. That sort of emotion and mentality is definitely contagious, for sure. The Green Mile changed my life when I was 16 years old, and my little mind could barely handle it. Yeah, it packs that emotional punch, as I was saying. Obviously can't forget Randall Flagg. That's big time important. So Sharon's here, just dropping in to say hi at work, so I can't watch it live. Love my reread of this book. I had forgotten a few things. Yeah, and that's one of the great things about revisiting some of these really stellar King books, because obviously, you know, I did the whole tier list ranking. There's some King books that I think are more like a C or a D, and then there's others that are definitely like an A or an S. And this is like, I forget if I gave it an A or an S, damn it. But this is definitely top tier King of storytelling. He proclaimed publicly that the internet audience would voluntarily pay for serialized content. I do remember that, and he was obviously right. I mean, look at what happened with, like, although it did go down, because I believe he implemented the honor system when he was doing like the plant, for instance, and that's why it never got properly finished, unfortunately. So, okay, Angus, a lot of Sleeping Beauties takes place in a women's prison. Yep, in the deeps, or what is it, Appalachian? And I know that's like kind of in the South as well, obviously. So, looking a little bruised up, Fuego. Catherine hurting you? Yeah, man, she is a puncher, dude. It's you know, it is what it is, unfortunately. Women's prisons aren't even bad. Yeah, there's one line where he's like, all penal, no penis. He says that in the book, and I'm just like, oh man, King, you really went there. He is fond of his just kind of occasionally toilety humor, or just kind of like gross out humor. I mean, obviously, I look at what happens at the pie eating contest and so on and so forth. So okay, didn't know that Austin hadn't read Sleeping Beauty yet. Okay, hey, how do you feel about Roadworkers being adapted? I'm stoked, man. Very, very stoked about that. I just hope it actually gets finished, because, you know, that's there's always that uncertainty, because so many King projects get announced and then just never see them. So, but forging forward and moving along, guys, because I still also do have to do an unboxing and then mention the fact that this is the last Saturday show, because the big channel relaunch is coming next week. And Hail to Stephen King is actually moving back to Tower Tuesdays, and we're basically altering the format here on the Horror Show, where we're going to be only 3 episodes a week, but we're so there's going to be a new King set. There's going to be some more crossover stuff. I've been talking with Mike Kearns from Mike's Book Reviews for a while. There's also a band that I am friends with here in Arizona, like a metal punk sort of band, and they're big King fans, and so we're going to be discussing their new album and Sai King, stuff like that. So there's a lot of exciting new content that is coming across the board. Cecil's working on some really dope stuff. I'm not sure how much I want to mention and how much he wants to like keep a secret. So some very interesting like ranking and countdown stuff. And so lots to look forward to on his end, and forging forward for him, Stephen King. I do kind of think a Tuesday live show is going to be challenging to get the sort of audience that I would really like for that discussion. So I'm not sure what time would be ideal for people on a Tower Tuesday to do a book of the month, but the book of the month is not going away. I'm curious how a live show midweek is going to do, but we will address that at some point. So yep, Sulfur and Stink, or Suffer and Wait. Yeah, there's and then Brad Dolan, obviously, part 2. Sorry, just trying to look at that. Something isn't funny unless it's mean. Yeah, and that Brad guy is the I believe that's the name of the orderly that in 1996, which was present day for Paul's character at that particular point, he had that similar just nasty vindictiveness of Mr. Percy there. So yeah, and the Steamboat Willie comparisons with our little mousy man, I thought that was cool. But yep, Ghosts, I know all about Ghosts, and you can only fry a man once. But when Coffee is finally about to, when you know he's not going to be saved, which is one of the most heart-wrenching and just sad bits in this entire book, and especially after all of the amazing things that he did. Like, one of my favorite beats in this whole thing is where they smuggle him out, and what they do to Percy is funny, but where they sneak him out of the prison to help the warden's wife, who has this inoperable brain tumor and has been having these borderline Tourette sort of moments, like saying cocksucker and stuff like that. And to the fact that the warden is just like, oh my Lord, really? It's very heartbreaking to hear about such a sweet woman and what that sort of affliction would do. But that's one of my favorite. I believe that's the 5th volume, or yeah, I'm trying to remember. But these are all out of order now. Come on, Fuego. yes, the Night Journey, the 5th volume. Definitely some of my favorite beats in the entire story are there because of what happens with, he basically sucks that nastiness out of her body. And then, Percy finally getting his just desserts and having that poison put into him. And obviously, with him going nuts and shooting up Wild Bill and stuff like that. I mean, it is a fitting end to that character to be in this like catatonic state. It's very karma, so to speak, in the fact that if you put that sort of nasty negativity as far as energy goes out into the world, it is very cathartic for just what transpires with that beat. And it's one of my favorite sequences of the entire book is from getting Coffee out to bringing him back and just him transmitting that stuff to Percy. It's some solid storytelling and very, very thrilling as well too. But despite all of the good that Coffee has done, that's where King really goes for that aforementioned gut punch, because of the fact that Coffee, like despite all of their best efforts and their discussions, and also the fact that King he has to play the race card here and be like, even if like the warden and like everybody else who at Edgecombe has basically warmed up to believing the idea that Coffee is in fact innocent, there is just that horrible reality of we're in the South in 1932 with a black man who has been accused of this horrible, just disgusting crime. And so they're like, nobody is like that sort of just racial prejudice and hatred. It almost becomes an inevitability in the back half of the book where like you want King to have some sort of just magical, wonderful, just, fist pumping, exhilarating, rescue for this wonderful character. And when you're pretty much like staring it down along with him, and he doesn't want the bag on his head because of the fact that as he mentioned when he was first being brought in, he's afraid of the dark, and he's like, please don't let the last thing that I see be that darkness. And it's gut wrenching storytelling, man. And then even worse is no, definitely not even worse, but on a level of despair for Paul, our main character and our narrator, King hints through the book, and this is another thing that I think I've been critical of King at times, is the fact that he definitely reveals things like early on sometimes that I wish he would just not show all of his cards at once, kind of thing. Like he mentions early on that like Coffee was in fact executed, and so there isn't that sort of like mystery and hope and stuff like that. He does premeditate and just give those preemptive sort of things in his stories, and he's done it many times where he's like blah 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 blah, and that was the last time that character ever saw this character, or that was the last time, things like that. So I wish he would have kept it a little closer to the vest, at least with that reveal, because then you're not holding out hope for just some sort of salvation for this character, especially as just beautiful of a soul as they obviously were. But nonetheless, I mean, Paul has to endure the agony of, despite the fact that he was cured of this urinary tract infection and stuff, he has seen many of his most beloved, friends and family, and obviously his wife, his wife dying in that horrible reveal that they don't get to until the end of the book. Like, because King hints at it, like in Elaine, this new older woman that Paul gets involved with at the nursing home, like, he obviously is a widower. I'm not sure what the terminology is if you're a man who has, lost a spouse, but he is a widower. I'll just go with that. And it's just like King hints at what happened, hints at how it was a tragic sort of situation. But then, as I said earlier, it does turn into like a Bruce Willis Unbreakable sort of situation with the fact that, and King hits this at the very end of the serialized storytelling. He's like, there was this bus accident, and there's like 60 something people on this bus, and I was one of like just a handful, like 4 or 6 or whatever that actually survived. And he's like, I was like, I barely even had a scratch, and yet all these other people are dead, and his wife is like dying in his arms. It's very cinematically told by King, but that just ups the effectiveness of the narrative, I would most definitely contend. And so and that's where it shifts into King talking about the just crying out to God and asking why these sort of just awful things have to happen, in this world, and just like how much this creator, this deity, actually really cares in that regard. So I saw that Austin chimed in with another, dude, sir, you're just rad status, and I cannot thank you enough for the donations, because they definitely help out this channel, help us keep the lights on, as I like to say. So, okay, Roadwork wasn't good as Dawn of the Dead. Okay, well, I mean, that's saying art's subjective, so, it is fine if you were not the biggest fan of Roadwork. I honestly, Dawn of the Dead, I'm one of those weird people who prefers Zack Snyder's remake, and I actually think Day of the Dead, the third installment, is the best in the series. But back to Sai King. Francis says, "What's up, man? Hello, chat. Chainsaw, dig it." Okay, no offense, but Stephen King is overrated. Well, hey, man, that's your opinion. He's my favorite author, so that's the thing. Anytime somebody, and we obviously have a troll who I'm going to stop addressing at this particular point, but I will say, anytime you have been called the world's most popular best-selling author, and how, just so many friggin' stories, like, look at all of these things behind me, man. It's craziness right there. But yeah, anytime somebody gets really popular, there are always going to be people who say they're not as good as, they're overrated, they're not like they shouldn't be as popular as they actually are, and that's totally fine. I mean, it's always going to be an issue. So okay, Old Darth, great book. Lou, I hope you're doing good, man. Great movie. Love the serialized release of the first book. Yeah, man. And shout out to the Stephen King podcast. Definitely check that out with my buddy Luke, who was on that awesome panel where we got to talk to Mike Kearns and Sarah Wagstaff, and shout out to Blue from Cemetery Dance, obviously. Okay, Austin, but back to Austin's super chat. Coffey's embrace of his own death is the most powerful part of the book. His speech to Park, I'm assuming that's Paul, before his execution always makes me cry. Yeah, the fact, and it is something that they mentioned in the fact that as heartbreaking as it is to learn about Paul's wife, as virtuous as Coffey's character was, the fact that he's embracing the coming darkness, and it's mentioned in the book. It's like it must have been just very exhausting to have the sort of ability that John did, and that JC did. And I mean, yeah, he's like, there's so much just darkness and sadness in this world that I'm ready for my life to be over. I've accepted it and I'm embracing it. And yet still the sadness of him, just not wanting to be in the dark until he is actually done. I mean, yes, it's a incredibly, incredibly powerful scene. And yeah, man, it is what it is. So that's why I read them and then go to jail and prison. A lot of people read that. Okay, so we're getting close to the end, but I definitely wanted to jump to some of those passages that I had mentioned. And there are, most of them are in the fact that Paul Edgecombe's character in this is basically so he is after decades and decades and decades, obviously, of so much time has transpired. He just needed to get this out of his system, and just finding Mr. Jingles once again, finding this mouse basically induced within him the desire to finally put this story to paper. But he talks about the writing process and embracing this sort of creativity, and I find it really fascinating. But so this is early on. This is in volume 2, where he talks about he's basically ruminating on the fact that there's always that call from the governor's office that they've got the phone right next to old Sparky, and people are always holding out hope that maybe some miraculous thing will happen and they will be saved. And King is through the voice of Paul, says, in the movies, salvation is cheap, so is innocence. You pay a quarter, and a quarter's worth is just what you get. Real life costs more, and most of the answers are different. And I found that to be quite profound. And then this is the one that I really, I did not recall this passage, honestly. And this is some of that romanticism in Paul's relationship with Jan, and just the sweetness of it, and in a lot of ways how it's reflective of Steve and Tabby, obviously. But this is the 6th chapter here in book 2, and he's like, when I was 18, my Uncle Paul, the man I was named for, died of a heart attack. My mother and dad took me to Chicago with them to attend his funeral and visit relatives from my father's side of the family, many of whom I had never met. We were gone almost a month. In some ways, that was a good trip, a necessary and exciting trip, but in another way, it was horrible. I was deeply in love. You see, with the young woman who was to become my wife 2 weeks after my 19th birthday, hardy hard, doing it again, King. One night when my longing for her was like a fire burning out of control in my heart and my head, oh yes, all right, and in my balls as well. I wrote her a letter that just seemed to go on and on. I poured out my whole heart in it, never looking back to see what I'd said because I was afraid cowardice would make me stop. I didn't stop. And when a voice in my head clamored that it would be madness to mail such a letter, that I would be giving her my naked heart to hold in her hand, I ignored it with a child's breathless disregard of the consequences. I often wondered if Janice kept that letter, but never quite got up enough courage to ask. All I know for sure is that I did not find it when I was going through her things after the funeral, and of course that by itself means nothing. I suppose I never asked because I was afraid of discovering that burning epistle meant less to her than it did to me. And as a hopeless romantic myself, for better or for worse, a lot of the damn time, and many instances of just pouring out my heart to somebody that I spent about half my life with. I related to King, man, in the fact that you lay yourself bare if you really if you pour your heart out in that fashion. And I think of Pros and Cons of Hitchhiking by Roger Waters, and the fact that love is like picking up a hitchhiker in ways, because of the fact that it's like this person could be sweet and wonderful or whatever, or they could try to murder you. There is a aspect of gambling to a degree with falling in love in that regard. And so yeah, that's just something that has always spoke to me. And then this is where he's actually talking about writing and its special powers and stuff like that. So I thought this was really great. This is in the 5th volume. And he says, writing is a special and rather terrifying form of remembrance, I've discovered. There is a totality to it that seems almost like rape. Wow, King. Perhaps I only feel that way because I become a very old man, a thing that happened behind my own back, I sometimes feel. But I don't think so. I believe that the combination of pencil and memory creates a kind of practical magic, and magic is dangerous. As a man who knew John Coffey and saw what he could do to mice and to men, I feel very qualified to say that magic is dangerous. It's another very, like, there's so many just prolific passages in this book. Like I have admitted to the fact that I feel like King in the early 90s, when he was initially getting sober, it took him a little while to find his footing and to just rediscover his voice without the accompaniment of substances and stuff like that, which we all know, came to a boiling head with with the Tommyknockers. But I feel like he was really finding his footing with this particular tale, and perhaps there is some importance and some as has been mentioned already here during this video. The serialized approach, having your back to the wall, working on a deadline and stuff like that, maybe that did assist significantly in just how good this was. But yeah, this is when King was getting back into the groove, firing on all cylinders. And this last passage that I wanted to get to here from the 6th book is the nature of time. And it's just, this shows the kind of cynicism that I think started creeping into just the end, this final volume, especially, with some of the commentary about, just denouncing capital punishment, as I said, and with the cynicism of age and, the nature of suffering and stuff like that. But King says here in the 11th chapter, time takes it all, whether you want it to or not. Time takes it all. Time bears it away. And in the end, there is only darkness. Sometimes we find others in the darkness, and sometimes we lose them there again. That's all I know. except that this happened in 1932 when the state penitentiary was still a cold mountain in the electric chair, of course. But yeah, just after like there's only darkness and stuff, and that's what Coffee had to be so brave to embrace, especially with just obviously knowing his innocence and all of the other people who were aware of his innocence as well, and yet still, like, it was unavoidable the fact that he was going to die. And so yeah, there is like especially in the concluding volume of this, there's cynicism and there's sadness and there is just this reflection of age and all of the loss that we encounter. If you like, it's once again that blessing and that curse of actually getting to age and have this significant amount of memories, or at least what you can recall and stuff. But yeah, this book is friggin' incredible, man, and I cannot sing its praises enough. And same with the film, obviously. I saw that Austin was throwing in a couple other things here and there. Fuego, one thing about the movie that perplexes me is why didn't Darabont show Mr. Jingles dying? It leaves no hope for Paul. Yeah, that's a good point, man. And like Paul's perspective at the end of this, book, it just feels there is an essence of hopelessness. And yeah, with the fact that friggin' orderly, what Brad, I think his name was. Yeah, the fact that, I mean, like the fact that Jingles got to live like 60 something more years or whatever, it's impressive and interesting and stuff like that. And it further doubles down on just the beauty of what John Coffey was able to pass along. But yeah, there is a somber sadness to the character of Paul at the very end of this book, and yeah, it's a little rough, man. Favorite quote below is from Brutal. Okay, I've done a few things in my life that I'm not proud of, but this is the first time I ever actually felt really in danger of hell. Yeah, where they know that they're like, we should not be executing this person, and if I'm standing before my maker, and this is the sort of decision that would damn my soul, my eternal soul. And, it's powerful stuff, man. It really is. And yet the fact that, the feeling of hopelessness in both, the fact that Paul has had this amazingly long life and, has been pretty much impervious to, like major illnesses or any of that stuff. There is a duality of hopelessness between, the loss of Coffee so early, and yet the fact that, Paul's like, how long do I have to stick around, man? Because we find out Elaine dies shortly after, she gets to read this tale of his. And so, yeah, it's powerful stuff, as I said, but yeah, I feel like whereas the film is a little bit more with its like bittersweet melancholy, a bit, I do feel like that there is a little bit more of that cynic, that crept into the end of this here. So because it was my job, it perfectly describes the moral conflict of the book, and there's major moral conflict within this book, and it's it is a damn good ending too. It really, really is. I mean, even just the last couple things that he says, I almost just want to like reflect on the passage real quick with you guys. And one other thing I love about this is you've got ads for like the re-release of the Bachman books, and you've got they're talking about Desperation that I think came out like, man, he did this and he did like 96 was this. It was also Desperation and the friggin' Regulators, man. Like this was where he was really finding that groove again, man, and he was about to put out Wizard and Glass too. Like, god damn. Then unfortunately we get to stuff like Bag of Bones where but then again, I mean, Hearts in Atlantis is incredible, but like the mid 90s I think was where he really was getting a little bit more comfortable, because I know he's talked a little bit of smack about Rose Madder and Insomnia specifically, some of those earlier works when he was freshly sober, but 96 to put out this serialized series and Desperation and the Regulators. There's even this like Enter to Win signed Stephen King stuff. Like I miss little books like this sometimes, man. There's something really dope about them. But yeah, it's never just a trick of the eye in these little dreams. It's always him for sure. My big boy just standing there and watching. I lie here and wait. I think about Janice, how I lost her, how she ran away read through through my fingers in the rain, and I wait. We each owe a death. There are no exceptions. I know that. But sometimes, oh God, the Green Mile is so long, and he's just like, how long? How, like, when's my time? You know, like, it's at that point, it's well documented. A lot of like very elderly people, they're like, they have that coffee mentality of they're ready to go, and you know, they're not going to Kevorkian status that shit. You know, it is a waiting game, and some people end up with much lengthier lives, and so yeah, there is definitely a bittersweet reflection there at the very end. And I had spaced until I reread this the fact that during the bus accident, he's pretty sure he sees Coffee's ghost, man, and he's like crying out to him, you know, save my wife, God, what, you know, why has this happened? And then, you know, he's not even sure if he saw the ghost of Coffee or not. You know, he's pretty positive, but you know, just yeah, it's this book has a lot of just rough fates for every character except for our narrator. You know, so yeah, exceptional storytelling, definitely as far as both film and source material. One of King's most prolific, most memorable, and most heartfelt, but also just critical of the nature of existence at times. And once again, back to the nature of suffering and why some have to go so young, and then others are like, you know, when do I get to go? It's a very fascinating juxtaposition that King does here. But yes, any further thoughts from y'all? But that's about going to do it, because we are at nearly an hour right now. My Saturdays do always entail my band coming over, doing some rock-a-lockin', and yeah, guys. But final thoughts, please chime in with those, and if not, I will reveal what the book of the month is for here in May. And so, okay, perfectly describes the moral conflict of the book. Yes. I had a damn good ending. Oh, Blue's making a brief appearance. Everyone thinks they want to live forever until they actually get the chance to do it. Yeah, and that's where it is just, there is that sad somberness to it. It is the fact that, yeah, immortality, it's, you know, it's got to be kind of lonely after a while just to see, you know, see the world change and see all of these, you know, people you cared about so much just, you know, go the way of the dodo and stuff. It's very, very important. Well, go easy on Bag of Bones now. That's in my top 5. I know, Blue, so many different people, and I think when some of our correspondence where I've kind of ragged on Bag of Bones, and it won the Bram Stoker Award. So obviously my opinion about Bag of Bones is in the minority, but art is subjective, as I constantly contend here. So yes, good stuff. Corey chimes in and says, I got to check that out. It seems like people either love it or hate it. The audiobook is awesome. Yeah, King reads it himself, which is, it's one of the few. I mean, I know King did the first, like, I have an audio cassette of the original Gunslinger Dark Tower with King actually reading it. And then I know that was re-recorded later on with that other narrator. But yeah, I'm like, Bag of Bones, I know he did Wind Through the Keyhole, and he's obviously read some of his short stories, you know, but yeah, it's crazy. I know he did some of Rose Madder too, if I remember correctly. The stuff from the evil husband's perspective, if I remember. But yeah, guys, this has been an incredibly fun discussion, and I feel very privileged to have had this palaver with all of you. And I guess before I do the reveal of this next book, I pre-ordered this so long ago, and shout out to, you know, the Cemetery Dance peeps, because some of my favorite deluxe editions of Sai King stuff have come from them. But this is actually from, I'm not sure if I have anything else from Titan Publishing, or if they are relatively new, or what the Dilla is, but this is, and I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to slice this mofo open. Yeah, let's see if this will work. But this is a pre-order from a while back, and I saw lots of other friends in the Hail group had theirs already, and the fact that I was like, yep, I'm still waiting. But yeah, check it. The deluxe edition of Later. I know Anthony Smock got his already, a few others, but so it says bonus cover inside. So I'm trying to remember, because I know there were 2 different editions of this, and so obviously we've got the crooked cop girl there, and the mother of our gifted boy. So is it a reversible cover? Is that what it is? Or did you end up just getting, oh, okay, sweet. So that's what they did. Okay. And there's this map on the back. That's pretty sweet. But no, this second cover, oh, that's cool. So yeah, the Secrets of Roanoke, our saucy tales that our gifted child's mother finished the last one up, and they even have the fake Regis Thomas photo on the back. That is, in some ways, I think I kind of like that better. But yes, this was a book that really surprised me, I gotta say. And there's a bunch of black and white illustrations here. So yeah, we've got our deceased writer there. What else we got? I'm sure there's all kinds of cool stuff. But I don't want to bore you guys with all of this. But so the illustrations are interesting. I gotta say, I'm not sure who actually did them. What else? Yeah, that's where the old man that he is befriended by. So the neighbor. So yeah, man, I am very up. And we got the gatefold double down, and the book is getting supernatural in the end. But I'm sure there's some people who haven't read later yet. Although if you haven't, what are you waiting for, man? What are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? Definitely get on it because it impressed me very much. This is funny though. Here in the back of this, the acclaim for the Secret of Roanoke. Thomas saved the best for last, and we all know why. Fans of sweet, savage historical fiction will once more be in a Buddhist ripping clover. That's from Kirkus Reviews. Miami Herald says the dialogue snaps, the pacing is crisp, and the relationship between Laura and Purity Betancourt feels real and touching. It's a great wind-up. Get the entire Roanoke saga: Death Swamp of Roanoke, Savage Heart of Roanoke, For Love of Roanoke, The Bastard of Roanoke, Purity of Roanoke, Blood Oath of Roanoke, Lost Legion of Roanoke, Rapture of Roanoke, Ghost Maiden of Roanoke, The Secret of Roanoke being this edition. That's pretty cool. I love how just kind of meta they got with that, and I'm very excited to add this over there to the shelf. But yes, now time to mention, and this is a book that I have not revisited, at least in the print form. Now, this was adapted in the Mr. Mercedes series, but we just celebrated the 5-year anniversary of End of Watch. And this, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, or however you identify, this is our book of the month here in May. It's 5-year anniversary, and I've got our books of the month all mapped out through the rest of the year, and so very excited about that. I was not that kind to this book when it came out. The second in the series, Finders Keepers, is my personal favorite in the Mr. Mercedes trilogy, although the first book is very, very strong as well. This one, I'm giving another chance, obviously, but I did not like the implementation of things being supernatural finally, and some of the abilities that Brady gets and whatnot. So yeah, this is not one that I'm super stoked to revisit, because I thought it was the weakest entry in the trilogy, and I did not like the ending. And in some ways, after the 3 seasons of Mr. Mercedes, that show is so fantastic. If you don't have Peacock, sign up for a free trial or whatever, and check out that series, because like Gleason is so good, and Gleason is how I picture the character of Hodges at this particular point, even though he is most definitely not Irish in this book. But yes, I was hard on this book at the time, but I'm interested to revisit. I know everybody is sick of Holly at this particular point, and all very curious if she's going to show up in Billy Summers or not. There's a part of it like if I were a gambling man with King's affinity for Holly Gibney, I would predict that she will make an appearance in some capacity in Billy Summers, even though I've said this on social media and in the Hail to Stephen King Facebook group a number of times. I feel like Holly needs a vacation, even though I do really enjoy her character, and I definitely dig her friendship with Jerome and his sister and whatnot. But yeah, so there you have it, guys. For better or for worse, I'm giving this another shot, and so that will be the live book of the month. But it's going to be on a Tuesday. So as I just consult the calendar really quickly, so Tuesday, the 1st of June, we're still trying to iron out the time. It may be an afternoon Pacific Standard Time. We may even go like later in the evening. We're not sure, but obviously stay tuned to Hail to Stephen King, the Facebook group. That's where there will be some sort of announcement, and I'll obviously hit it up on the Instas and the tweets and Facebook and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm not impervious to the occasional disillusionment of just social media and just constant grind of it. So I'm not always as active as I used to be on that Facebook group. But then again, with over 1,000 members, it's tough to even read all the posts a lot of the time. But yes, book of the month, end of watch here, and Tuesday, June 1st will be the first live book of the month on Tuesday. So I extend the grind, gracias, everybody. I have been Jaime and Fuego, and you can find me on all social media sectors like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, here on the YouTubies, where, yes, I do have a personal channel in Fuegotainment that I've done stuff, periodically with. I think the last review I did on there was the Bob Odenkirk Nobody film, so that's something you can check out. And lots of other, just a whole catalog of content there. But a like, a share, a subscribe here on the horror show, obviously, is significantly appreciated. Helps us keep with them numbers and stuff like that, the weirdness of the monetizations of YouTube. But yes, it is always a pleasure to share some of this palaver with you guys. And I guess that is going to do it, everyone. So until the Wheel of Ka comes around once more, hasta luego, cinemagos, constant readers and viewers alike, say thank you. I hope we share more of this palaver sooner rather than later. And until next time, remember to stay scared and read Stephen King. Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one. I'm probably just going to have to, read the other 2 entries too. So I got a lot of work ahead of me this month. Thanks, everybody. Greatly appreciate all of you. And yes, I look forward to seeing you soon. Tuesday, yeah. Next episode is coming this Tuesday. So look forward to the horror show relaunch, and much love, everybody. Go Suns. Bammer.